Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Friday, early edition. Welcome to Happy Hour. We did it. We made it through another week, and now we get to kick back, relax, watch some woke leftist training, and have a couple of beers and talk about it, what it means for, the cultural revolution that we're in this country and the future of humanity and all those things. Thank you for joining me for this special early edition of Happy Hour. It is an early edition because I have an event that I'm going to later tonight with the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire. We're going to go, basically what's happening is we are going to a house of one of the members, and they are going to smoke and cook a metric F ton of meat, and it will be a meat eating extravaganza, Mises Caucus meetup in New Hampshire tonight. So if you're in New Hampshire and you want to come out to the Mises Caucus meetup, let us know. We'll get you the information. You can meet some wonderful New Hampshire libertarians. You can eat some good food. You can enjoy some good company. I think there might be a movie later. Like, there's gonna be all sorts of great stuff going on, and I'm really excited about it. But in order for me to be able to go to that, I had to do happy hour a little bit earlier today. And I apologize for the short notice for anyone who might not have been notified that happy hour was early. It was just been a heck of a day. I was trying to figure out what time I was going to go live in conjunction with the stream with Joshua that we did earlier. Anyway, we made it. We're here. We're going to enjoy ourselves. All right, guys, since we do have a little bit of a time crunch, I am going to go a little bit quicker than usual. Today, we are going to be watching a presentation that is about a year old. It was in August of 2021 that they put this on the internet. It's only had 12 views. And I keep telling you guys that the craziest stuff is going to come in the videos that have no views anywhere. It's like the stuff that no one's ever seen. And this is actually on the YouTube channel of a publishing company, because this is a book. They're introducing a book. Chapman Press presents Talking to Kids About Race, an introductory guide to building foundations for racial equity in early childhood. We are delighted to host this event in partnership with Kendra McNeil of We Are Lit. She'll be in conversation with author Anissa Eddy and illustrator Piper, also joining other people. And this is for a book launch that they did for a book called Talking to Kids About Race. So I'm interested to hear what they have to say. I'm interested to hear how they explain how they introduce Marxism into the lives of our youngest citizens who do not have the intellectual ability to defend themselves. That's what we're going to be doing today on Happy Hour. I hope you have a drink in hand. Sit back. Let us know what you're drinking if you're drinking anything interesting in the chat. And thank you also to my viewers who are watching on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, Gitter. I think I'm even streaming on Facebook, all the different places. I appreciate you guys as well. All right. So a couple quick things before we get started. A couple things I want to shill for. Now, I got a bunch of events coming up for my locals community this weekend. Tomorrow is our monthly Bitchcraft. Bitchcraft is an open Zoom call where we bitch and we craft. And that's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern time in locals. You get the access to this as a supporter, either in locals or Patreon. You can support me on Patreon and get access to it as well. But you do need to be a supporter on either locals or Patreon to get the link to join us for Bitchcraft. It's going to be a great time. I've got a brand new shawl that I'm working on. It's really cool. It's got these like serrated, like it's mystery knit along time for the shawl. And so I definitely have some knitting I need to do for the mystery knit along shawl tomorrow. So that's what I'll be knitting. But all crafts are welcome. Crochet, quilting, sewing, drawing, painting, clean your gun, fold laundry, just come hang out, whatever. That's going to be at 3 p.m. tomorrow in my locals. And then on Sunday in my supporter Discord, which again, and I'll tell you how you get access to this stuff in a second. If you're in my supporter Discord, you can come and watch The Crow with us at 8 p.m. on Sunday, the 9th. There we go. So we will be watching Crow in the supporter Discord at on Sunday. I'm really excited about it. I haven't watched The Crow in years, but I loved it back in the day. I'm one of those people that had like the Crow lunchbox. I'm still pretty certain I have like a whole bunch of those Crow lunchboxes. Actually, you know what? You guys know those like little freaky cartoon doll thingers that you can get at like Newberry Comics? I actually have a Crow one that's sitting on my bookcase that my husband got me for for I think Christmas or something. Like it is like a fun little gift. So I have one of those things for the crow that's sitting over on my bookcase in the other part of my office. So I think this movie's great. I'm really looking forward to it, and we're gonna have a great time. Now, if you want to join and get access to the supporter Discord and the locals community, oh no, my connection was interrupted. Oh no. Hang on, stand by. There it is. Oh, thank God, my website's not down while I'm live on the internet. That's always a bonus. There are a couple ways you can get access to that. Number one, you can become a supporter on Patreon. You can do anywhere from $5 a month all the way up to $250 a month, depending on what perks you want. $5 a month will get you in for both Bitchcraft and The Crow. But if you want to give more, hey, who am I to stop you? Now, if you don't want to do that, you can join my locals community. And locals is the place where I spend the most time. We do 2 community Zoom calls every single week. We have a vibrant community of supporters. We actually have a community member right now. Check this out. There's a member of my community. She's a very valued member of my community. Shout out to Sin. Sin is raising money to be able to go take dance classes because she's using ballroom dancing to keep her healthy as she's waiting for a kidney transplant. I think I said liver transplant the other day, but it's a kidney transplant. And the community is rallying around her. We're crowdfunding to help Sin take dancing lessons because she's a senior citizen. She's on a fixed income, doesn't have a lot of disposable income. That's the type of community that you're going to find in locals. And of course, my Patreon supporters do get access to the locals calls we do as well. But I don't know, there's just something special about locals. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't checked it out, now might be a great time to do it. And you're going to get access to the supporter Discord if you do, which is where we do movie nights. And you're going to get access to that Bitchcraft on Sunday. One last thing I want to let you guys know is that next week I'm going to be doing a live webinar. You can see here on the right, called Our Game Plan, Using Change Management to Defeat the Woke Cultural Revolution. I'm basically combining my organizational psychology knowledge with fighting back against the woke left. And I have come up with, I think, a pretty compelling game plan for what needs to happen for us to actually push back on this woke cultural revolution. I'm going to be presenting it in this live webinar and telling you guys about it. It is free to join. I do ask for a donation for the work I'm doing when you sign up, but you don't have to. It's not required. If you don't want to give me money for that, that's totally cool, man. You can still join for free, and I hope that you do. But you can sign up for that at activelyunwoke.com/events. And that's going to be next week on Wednesday, October 12th. And I'm really looking forward to that. All right, guys, before we get started, we have one last order of business. And that's I need a beer. I need a beer. And as is tradition on Happy Hour, you guys get to vote for which beer I start with. I come with 4 options and I tell you about them. I just got back from the craft beer store. I think you guys are really going to love some of my options today. So let me get my options and then we can do a vote and then we'll go right into our video. Hang on, sit tight. Okay. So my first option is actually a leftover from last week. And I'm not that excited about this one. I thought I'd throw it in there for the record. But this is a leftover from last week, and this is called Sack Lunch, and it's white chocolate and plum. I don't think it's a bad option, by the way. I don't think it's bad. I've never had it, but I don't think it's a bad option. I'm just not as excited about this one as I am about some of the others. But if you guys want me to try this one, then you're going to be able to get your vote in on that one. But that's a leftover from last week. But I do have 3 new beers to add to the mix. And the first one we're going to look at, and this one, I just realized this is an IPA because I didn't look at the can. This beer I bought based purely on the title of the beer, and I didn't realize it was an IPA when I bought it. But this beer is called What Even Is Pumpkin Spice, and this is a 7.5% beer. An IPA, which I don't normally drink IPAs. Maybe it'll be okay. Some IPAs are all right. Most of them suck. And this is a milkshake style India Pale Ale with pumpkin and spices. So I got it for the pumpkin. Didn't realize it was an IPA, but that's all right. Sometimes IPAs are good. It might end up being a happy surprise. This next one I got because I was thinking about bot, as I do many days. Not necessarily for what's in the can, but for the design on the can. It's got that kind of purpley bluey feel, and that's just what I thought of when I first saw it in the beer store. But it actually doesn't. The flavor of the beer does not reflect the can at all. But this is called Majak Colada, and this is basically a pina colada beer. This is with pineapple, coconut, and marshmallow, and I think that's a great option. I love pina coladas. I especially love them on cruises, which is really the only place I ever drink them. But this last beer, now listen, I don't want to tell you guys who to vote for, but I really want to try this beer. I really want to try this beer. Really, really badly. Okay? And it is birthday cake. Birthday cake in a beer can. And this is actually called Frostly Birthday Cake. That's all it is. I have no other context other than it's a birthday cake beer. So those are our options today. We've got white chocolate and plum. We've got pumpkin IPA that I didn't realize was an IPA. We've got pina colada, and we've got birthday cake. Let me put the poll in the chat on YouTube, and you guys can let me know which beer. Don't allow my opinion to sway you. My beer is falling all over the floor. Hang on. My mouse isn't working. My beer is falling all over the floor. Okay, now the poll is in the chat. I can start getting my shit together. Don't let my opinion dictate who you vote for. Vote for which one you want. I won't be upset. I won't be upset if you don't vote for birthday cake. I'm not going to yell at anyone or anything. But you guys can let me know which one you want. And in the meantime, I'm going to get set up. Well, no, you're not coming to the meat eating extravaganza. I'm going to the meat eating one later, Kurt. But have fun in Milford. I'm going to get set up for this here stream as you guys are voting. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, birthday cake is the winner, yay! But pina colada came in second, and also, so if I get done the birthday cake one on this stream, I'll do pina colada next. I think that one sounds great. All right, let's pour this and get this part. Breaking the flaw. What is it with you and the cops? That's not what I want to display. Breaking the flaw. What is going on? You are always in some sort of entanglement with the cops. I will drink the pina colada 1 second. All right, hang on. Let's pour our birthday. Oh, I didn't expect it to be pink. What a nice surprise. Oh, it definitely has like that smoothie vibe. It definitely looks so grape and smoothie-y. Oh, it tastes like a smoothie. You know what this tastes like? It tastes like when you have like a nice white, like pure vanilla cake, and then they drizzle some raspberry syrup on top of it. Oh, so good. So good. Well done, guys. Thank you for allowing me to have birthday cake for beer. All right. Let's get this party started. Mount the like button. Let me just get this set up. We should be all set with sound. And let's learn. I do have Canadian viewers. Yes, I do. Let's learn how leftists talk to kids about race.
So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Samantha Hendricks. I am the event coordinator here at Schuler Books and Nicholas Books. We've got 3 locations in Grand Rapids, Lansing, and in Ann Arbor. Tonight, we are talking to kids about race. This event was prompted by a book that came through our Chatbook Press by Anissa. We are so excited to be able to do this evening, and Anissa put together this amazing panel, which we're going to hear from this evening as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody, and then Kendra McNeil of We Are Lit is going to host and moderate the conversation. So without further ado, Anissa Eddy is the founder and principal consultant with Luminality Consulting. Through her consulting practice, she offers support
she works for herself.
Project management,
which isn't bad. I do the same thing.
Strategic planning, coaching, and training. Her work
focuses let's not pretend like that's a big company. It's not. It's
building
herself.
And policy. She's also pursuing a PhD in child development at MSU. She's interested in leveraging research to inform public policy in order to increase equitable outcomes for children and families, particularly within the context of birth justice, identity development, race justice, socialization,
and
social detriments of health. Anissa lives here in Grand Rapids with her partner and their 3 kids. Hi, Anissa. Thanks for joining us. we have Piper. Oh my gosh, why can't I do this? Piper Adenaya.
You got it.
Yes. Yes. And I got myself all worked up. Is an award-winning illustrator, visual storyteller, and designer. She is passionate about amplifying voices, nerding out on research-based illustration and design, and creating works that tell a story. Whether she is drawing a portrait of an individual who has shaped history or hand lettering an editorial social justice post, she uses illustration and design to educate, inspire conversation, and make complex social justice related issues easier to comprehend and work through.
So she's a woke artist. Woke artist is what you're saying.
We have Gloria Lara, who has extensive experience in leadership positions in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. A native of LA, she received a BA in business administration, specifically accounting, from California State University, Fullerton, and a Master of Business Administration from Harvard Business School. She held executive level positions at major corporations during her over 20 years in the corporate world. Thanks for joining us, Gloria. And last but not least,
Gloria's
our facilitator
silent.
this evening is Kendra McNeil, the founder, curator, and owner of We Are Lit. Her work focuses on creating a culture around books and developing programs around long-term community-based literary initiatives. She is the Chief Operating Officer and City of Grand Rapids Neighborhood Match Project Leader for the Black Book Exchange Box, a nonprofit organization and book exchange system dedicated to the thoughtful representation of Black people in art, culture, and literature. Whew. We have some amazing people on this panel this evening, everyone, and I'm so excited for you to hear from them. I'm going to hand it over now to Kendra. Like I said, drop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we will get to them shortly. Thank you, ladies.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First, I just want to thank Schuler's and Nicola Books and Chap Book Press for putting this panel together and hosting us this evening. That first, and I'm just really excited to be here and to get into this conversation around such an important topic and such a great work from some ladies from the community. So glad to be here. So kind of what we're going to do tonight, we're going to start with, I'm going to start with Gloria because Gloria, as you learned in the introduction, is the executive director of Lita, and that is the origins of talking to kids about race. And so, Gloria, if you would not mind just giving us a little background about Lita and your work there, and then just kind of tell us about how talking to kids about race started.
Well, thank you, Kendra, and I'm really pleased and excited to be here. I was accused as a young child of being a bookworm, so to me, books are amazing because they can help you learn and also escape. So yeah, they're great.
Yeah, and now the tables are turned because you interviewed me at one point, and so now I get the pleasure of getting into a conversation with you.
Right, I was reflecting on that. So Lita, which is Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, is based in Holland, Michigan, but we provide our services throughout all of the west side of the state, and we're expanding to other parts of the state as well, and sometimes other states. We were founded 25 years ago and what we do is we build bridges between different groups of people to help people understand each other. We do this by workshops, right now specifically on implicit bias, where we take people, organizations, boards of directors through
So she's a grifter, essentially. She's grifting off of this nonsense to make mad money doing corporate training to convince people they're racist when they're really not racist. That's what we're hearing right now. But what I want to call attention to is the fact that she said that this organization that she is running was started 25 years ago. That's like a pretty consistent theme that I keep seeing pop up in these woke trainings where this stuff really, I'm not saying it didn't exist before then. It did exist before then. It existed a long time before then. But what I continue to see both in the schools and the workplace is about 25 years ago, is when they really started pushing into these areas more aggressively. And so that's that I think is when things really started to change. I could be wrong about that. I am open to being proven wrong about that. And if anyone has any other ideas or any other theories, I would certainly love to hear them. But I think 25 years ago is really when they started pushing more aggressively into the institutions and did what they could and did what they did to make woke ideology systemic among these institutions.
Sessions and trying to understand and come to common definitions and understandings. We're also have an annual summit every year where we have usually over 700 people. During the virtual days, we had 700 last year and 400 this year, talking specifically with some keynote speakers on current topics as well as workshops. But what we're most proud of is our work with children. And one of our major programs is called Calling All Colors, where we have middle and high school students that gather together in a summit basis at the beginning of the school year. They have speakers, and then they break off into their different school groups during the school year and make projects about inclusivity, equity, etc. within their schools, and then they present them to us at the end of the school year.
So parents, you got to make sure you know what projects your kids are doing, huh?
Lita was founded 25 years ago, and that was in 1996. But it became evident that there was really a need to talk to children about race. Children start, and this is really, she'll be talking about the theory and all that about that. But what we ended up is putting together a workshop and then a book. This was our original book, just very basic, talking to kids about race. It's published in the year 2000. I mean, we have things like, coloring books, and
oh, good.
Just a total of just 19 pages. We decided about 2 years ago, I believe, Anissa, to actually more than 2 years, 2.5, 3 years ago, to update the book. And we were fortunate and lucky enough to meet up with Anissa, who's really focused on that. So we actually came up with this book, Talking to Kids About Race. And it's very specific with gorgeous illustrations. Thank you, Piper. Whoops, there we go. So, I mean, and what it does is it's an introductory guide to building foundations for racial equity in early childhood. Our target audience are parents, early childhood.
Hang on, Vince is making a great point in the chat, and I want to make sure we talk about it. Vince says 25 years ago, or roughly 1997, and by the way, that's around that time that if you guys have seen the white supremacist culture like PDF that's been floating around forever, it's the thing that basically influenced the Smithsonian Museum on African American History to say that it's like white supremacy for people to be on time and that sort of thing. That came out in 1997. So yeah, 25 years ago, or roughly 1997, could that push into the institutions by the woke left have been a reaction to the GOP contract with America from 94 to 96? I think I think that that's absolutely part of it. I think what we see is the left definitely reacts anytime the right has any sort of power. The left is overly reactionary to that power. And so, yes, I do think that it could have been a reaction to that. I do think that it was started much before that, and I think that they would have done it anyway. But we kind of saw the same thing with Trump, right? Like the left was like floating along and they were doing their crazy stuff and they'd been doing it for a while, and then Trump came along and they got so much more aggressive. So do I think that going from talking about something on an academic level in the institutions to actually making concerted pushes into the mainstream organizations in order to systematize the woke left ideology within all the major institutions in our country, I do think that could have been provoked by the right getting power and doing something that the left didn't like. But I do think the left was they'd already started this stuff in the institutions like a long time ago. I just think it's that the left backlashes against the right and the right backlashes against the left, and we just go ping pong back and forth all day every day. But I think that that's a really good observation, Vince, and I think there is definitely some there.
Educators, the general public, a lot of grandparents are interested in this because as children start seeing different things on the news, or they can't help but hear their parents or their peers talk about things, many people come to us and say, I want to talk to my kids, but I don't want to do it in a way that will harm them, or I want to do it in a way that they will be able to understand and that's age appropriate. So that's what we did. So I think it's probably, unless you have any other questions, that's like it's time for Anissa.
Yeah, well, I do want to ask you one question. If you could just speak perhaps a little bit to some of the outcomes that you may be aware of people who have participated in the workshop.
So the outcomes and the parents and the grandparents feel a lot more confident when they talk to their children.
As measured how?
Something, especially to your children, that you really don't know the answer to. Most of the time you go, well, we'll talk about that later, or that's not we're not going to discuss that. So children start thinking that there's something wrong with talking about someone's skin color, or why someone's hair is different, or why someone looks different, or why someone speaks differently, or why someone doesn't even understand English. So what this book does is it enables the parents, the adult, to be able to speak a little bit more confidently, and to hope that, it opens up the discussion with the child. So you can question them or they can question you. And as they get older, they start realizing that there's different avenues and different ways to think about it, but it doesn't become a closed subject.
Yeah. And I guess my final question for you, Gloria, before I bring Anissa in is, you mentioned earlier that Lita does work with leaders.
Hang on. Thank you, Murphy's Pool, for the super chat. New employee at wife's work. She presented as female at hiring, but after a week on the job presents as male and demands to be called Todd and use he and him. Seems suspicious. Person looking for a lawsuit. I mean, maybe Murphy's Pool. I mean, trans is now a protected class, I believe. And so it's entirely possible that they could be looking for a lawsuit. But I guess what I would say is, how I would handle it if I was your wife is to treat that person with respect and dignity, and to, I not everyone agrees with me on this. I say use the pronouns, because unless someone's trying to again, I think it's like a sign of like respect and dignity. It's like, do you have to call me Karlyn? No, you don't. You could call me any manner of names. Like, if Carrie Smith was right in front of me, she would just go narcissist, like, instead of calling me my name. And so like you don't have to offer people with like respect. You don't have to. But I do think it's like the adult thing to do. And I think it's just like, if you want people to respect you, then you need to show them the same courtesy and consideration. So I wouldn't really worry about it. And I wouldn't like, you don't know what's going on in that person's life, I guess. You don't know how long they've been thinking about this. You don't know how long this has been incoming, and they had no obligation to disclose it in the job interview, because it probably has nothing to do with their job. So that's how I would handle it. I do understand your perspective, but that's my thoughts on it. And thank you again for the super chat.
Leadership within companies and things like that. Was there something specific that was brought to the organization that prompted the need to develop a workshop for children? Maybe feedback from the community? How did the organization determine that, in addition to the work that it was already doing at an adult level, it needed something for children as well?
Well, that was way before my time, but
Okay.
but one of the things that we do is we're always responsive to our communities, to
Mhm.
the people that attend our workshops. And I believe that we could sense that there was this discomfort about, well, this is fine. I'm learning all about this, but what do I tell my children?
Yeah.
You know, and right now we also work with a lot of educational institutions, a lot of the school districts, schools, and ISDs as well. So we're quite busy with all that as well. So the teachers and the staff and the educators are also learning about equity. And we also are putting workshops together for early childhood education as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Anissa, I want to come to you now. And as we learned that talking to kids about race started as a workshop, and that there was already a workbook in play, if you can just share with the audience how you came into the project and how it evolved to the update that we have
Sure.
now.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Kendra. So happy to be here and talk about this. It's really been a passion project from the beginning. But the way that I came into this, I was doing an early childhood fellowship through the Pritzker Children's Initiative. And so my work was really focused
Pritzker is
on
the
early
governor of
childhood
Chicago.
systems building.
They're a very
and
rich family.
policy and advocacy
Or governor of
around the
Illinois,
infant
sorry,
toddler
not Chicago.
population in particular. And
Mhm.
for this fellowship, it was a 2-year fellowship, we needed to do a capstone project. And the interim executive director, even before Gloria was there, had come to me and just said, I know you're kind of interested in this topic, and I wonder if you might help us update this content for the workshop and make some edits and updates to the workbook. So originally I was thinking this would be perfect for this capstone project, and I could do it all in my work time. And also it would give me some preparation as I was considering applying to a PhD program. And I knew this was an area I was interested in researching. But the fellowship changed the criteria and decided that that wouldn't count as a project. But once I had started to get into it, I couldn't let it go. I had conversations with Piper. She was excited about the illustrations. I had people in my mind that I wanted to pull in. And so I just decided to continue to pursue it on my own time and really create the project from there. As Gloria came into the organization, when we talked about it, it was clearly a priority that she wanted to see finished and was really willing to collaborate and work with me on that, even though I had to adjust the time frame. And so we decided to go all in. Originally, it was going to be maybe some minor updates, data points, things like that. But we felt the hunger for this kind of content, and we wanted it to be a book that could exist within the workshop model with Lita, but also be widely accessible to others as well. And then partnering with Schuler was an amazing way to get it printed here locally and make it available.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your passion for racial equity work. And in a previous conversation that
Can we
you
define
had
racial equity
around,
work?
the
Can we get a
book,
definition?
You made the comment about your passion around helping children to understand their self-worth, and then also that your interest in proactively addressing the consequences of racism. And so if you can just talk to us a little bit about your passion for racial equity work, and not just within the scope of the book, but just what you're working on now.
Definitely. So for me, I think it's really important to be grounded in your why. And I had heard Dr. Gail Christopher speak at a conference a while back, and she said a sentence that really spelled out for me my why. And that was that there is no hierarchy of human value. And I just feel like that's such a core concept that I try to approach my relationships with and my work with. And when I think about the hierarchies that do exist and that are embedded in our systems and the harm that they cause, it's something that
They caused
makes me
you so
upset
much
and
harm
makes
that
me,
you're
feel
obviously really
driven to do
successful in
work.
getting into a
But
PhD
at the same
program.
time, early childhood has been the focus of my professional work for a long time. And when I started to put the pieces together, recognizing that especially in the infant and toddler years, that's the most rapid period of brain development. That first 3 years of life, so much of the foundation is laid at that time. And even though we have amazing programs and initiatives that help us to learn about our implicit bias and unlearn things or relearn history that we were misguided or misinformed on, I felt like there was a lack of proactive effort of when these biases are first developing and when concepts of what race means or categorizations of all kinds of difference that leads to isms that are harmful are first starting in the minds of children.
She's literally telling you, we need to get them when they are in their most susceptible state, when their brains are forming. We need to get them early before they become racist at 4 years old. That's literally what she's telling you. That indoctrinating these people is so important that they need to start off as early as possible to make sure that these kids never see the world in a different way. You know, I was watching I don't know how many of you watch The Handmaid's Tale, but I do, and I fucking love The Handmaid's Tale, and I don't care what anyone says about it. I think it's a great show. And I was watching it last night. There's a new season out, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't watched it previously, catch up on it. Good show. And they were talking about how the society in The Handmaid's Tale in the 5th season is now so far along that there are people who don't remember what America was before the literal fascists took over and created this full on like religious based society. There were people after 5-6 years that did not remember what it was like before the bad guys took over. If these people win, there will be people in the not too distant future who do not remember what the world was like before equity got into every major institution in the country. They will not remember what the world was like before people judged each other based on the color of their skin. They will not know a time. I very distinctly remember a time when we were told, don't judge people by the color of their skin. Everyone's the same on the inside. Skin color doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. Don't judge people based on these things. That's what I grew up learning. These people, though, are trying to get to people so early that the kids that they are getting to will not know a time when there was another way to look at the world. They will not understand that there were times in history that people did not look at you and judge you by the color of their skin. That's what these people want. And that's why people need to start taking this seriously. We are not actually that far off from this, guys. 25 years they've been doing this. 25 years. They're just now, in the last couple of years, really getting into the younger grades. Give it a decade. 10 years. It will happen in our lifetimes. There will be people who don't understand what it was like before you judged people by the color of their skin or their gender or who they slept with or any of those things. That is real, that is serious, and that is happening right now. Murphy's Pool, thank you for the super chat. Issue is it's a funeral home setting, many older people visiting, sensitive interactions, confusion, and mid-gendering, inevitable, suspicious. Again, if you can't fire someone for that, so if you're going to a funeral for a loved one and the thing that you're worried about most is what the name of the I don't remember anyone's name that worked any funeral that I went to when a loved one died. I don't think people care. And I certainly don't think a big issue should be made of it because of individual's personal. There are going to be a lot of people who really do not care. That's my opinion on it. That's my opinion. I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Yeah, Jennifer is making a great point. I wonder if that's why they're so intent on providing free childcare so that they can snag the children. Yep. Probably. Great point.
And so that's where I wanted to intersect my own passion for equity on all aspects, but specifically within early childhood. And then adults come into the picture because we are the ones that are helping to socialize and shape and guide the learning and development of children. So educating the adults is very much impacting young children in this work.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Piper, first I want to share I always hate to say that I have favorites illustrations because they're all good, but this one I just love a whole lot. And I know, again, from hearing other commentary that Anissa has given on the project, that she talks with a lot of passion about having you a part of the project. And so one of the things that that I've heard her say is that she knew that you would be able to capture the messaging and the emotion through the art for this book. And so if you don't mind talking to us just a little bit about your process and even how you approached this particular project.
Yes, I too have a quote. And I've heard it said that if you take something that makes you mad, something that just infuriates you, but then you combine it with a passion or a talent. So it's like a passion / maybe it makes you mad. But you combine it with something that you're good at. And then right there, that's where you find your purpose. And so for me, I absolutely.
That's not the quote at all.
And
she just flubbed that quote.
I can't wrap my
really
mind around it.
badly.
I always tell my daughter, she's a fierce advocate, that I said, you really, especially with all of what's happened this last couple of years, I said, I guess it's probably good we can't explain. We don't understand. There's some things we don't understand, right? But what we do know is talking about it helps. What we do know is seeing. So my foundation statement for me is everyone should see themselves reflected in art, period. It should be a reflection of the world. Whatever we see in front of us, it should be a beautiful reflection of what we see in real life. This is what real life looks like. So real life should be seen and felt. And so that is the core of what I do. And then another goal for me as an artist is I think about it. Part of my process is getting people past acceptance. Oh, I accept you, or we accept you. Nobody just wants to be accepted. And I think we've come a long way, and we want to be appreciated. To me, the next step is to get people, to inspire people is a better way to put it, to inspire people towards appreciation. And that's just the next step, because appreciation is great. And because once you learn about someone's culture and you spend time with them and you read a book or you read the behind the scenes about them, or like I have another book here. I know we're toting our book, but I have another book here. I have a whole bunch of diverse books. When you hear about people's stories and you hear
she
about
is such a grifter. Holy shit.
They've done amidst amazing struggles, it is a lot harder to hold racism in your heart to them or have hate. And
how do you find racism?
But it's going to be a lot harder. And then you're really faced with,
oh my God, I hate people like this. They're so mind-numbingly
they're
awful.
human just like me, and they've actually had a lot more hurdles than I had. And they still accomplished something amazing. So just having that access.
You don't know what hurdles people have had, bitch.
It's just some of my work is silly and fun. I do comics.
You have no idea.
It's just being able to see people with diverse backgrounds just living their life, and that's what it should be. Yeah, did I answer your question? I might go in 3 circles. So I know you're good at bringing us back in.
but I do want to ask you specifically about one of the illustrations in the book. And so, because part of what talking to kids about race does is to reinforce positive affirmations in children, along with helping others understand the differences, people who have differences that are not their own. So when I saw this particular illustration, you captured so many different attributes in one child. And so there's in the book, and we'll get to it later, but it talks about how you can't assume things about a person just
I do
based
actually like the
on what
limitations.
they, what they look. And so when I see the
really?
illustration,
Oh, really?
and
Hang
there's
on.
dark.
Hang on. You're telling me this is actually a good thing. I'm getting a little incredulous though, because these people obviously don't know what they're talking about. Okay, so the book says that you shouldn't assume things about people based on their race, but didn't that woman just assume things about people based on their race? I mean, yes, we should. If the tone of this book is teaching kids we should not be assuming things about people based on their race, then I will have absolutely no problem whatsoever with this book. I actually think the illustrations are nice. I'm not gonna I like the illustrations. I think it's kind of a cool style, so I'm not gonna say anything bad about that. But that's literally not what that woman just said. She literally was just saying, "Oh, well, some people just have it harder than others based on their race." Well, okay, guess what? You just made assumptions about someone based on their race. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but come on.
Darker skin and lighter eyes and even lighter hair, and it's just kind of, it makes it difficult to have judgments based on appearance, because people come just with so many different ones. So if you would not mind, what was kind of your thinking behind this illustration?
I'm always wanting to push myself past what even I initially am thinking. And this, and I talked about this, and I'm thinking, I think she had black hair to begin with. And I just was like, I want to even switch it up from there, because I've grown up and still know people that have really dark skin and have red hair, natural red hair, or blonde hair, and just showing that there's beautiful differences even within. If she's black, we haven't even decided what she is she Puerto Rican with really beautiful dark skin and she has blonde, I don't know, but just really capturing the beauty of the diversity even within different cultures.
I think that's
and it
nice.
not being this
I have no
one
problem with that at all.
specific thing. And again, it just goes back to the core of children seeing themselves. And it's not just children seeing themselves, it's other people and from different backgrounds seeing them being represented. That's every bit as important. So let's say that there's some white kids that grew up and all that they see is other white kids in stories, other white kids on TV, whatever. That does a great disservice to them, because when they grow up, it does not prepare them for real life. It does not prepare them for real world circumstances, because aside from living in a bubble, they are going to interact with people of color. And on one end, at best, they will feel shame. And at the other end, it will cultivate hate or racism, because it's just this one viewpoint.
Wait.
And it doesn't prepare them.
She just said that white people, when they interact with people of color, the best thing that they're going to experience is shame, and the worst thing they're going to experience is hatred. No, that's not true. Just because you are a white person that is interacting with someone who is not white does not mean you feel shame. You might feel shame, Rachel Dolezal. You might feel shame. Most normal people do not actually feel shame when they're interacting with someone of a different race.
It doesn't prepare white children for real life circumstances and real life just activities, just working and moving about life. So it's important not just for children themselves to see them represented of all backgrounds, but also for other children on maybe the outside of whatever different culture that is seeing that represented. So that's really, really important for everyone to see that and say, this is normal, a shared experience, this just the rainbow being experienced that
Mhm.
should be the normal thing. It shouldn't
It
necessarily
is the normal
be
thing. You
like
people are
this big
trying to make it a
production. It
big
should just be
fucking deal.
natural and normal.
Yeah, yeah. I can appreciate that because in my work with my bookshop, part of what inspired me was how Black literature and work written from other people of color.
No. That's
was,
not Rachel Dolezal. That's
um,
not Rachel. That's not Rachel Dolezal. And I will say, so Rachel Dolezal, I actually feel really bad for Rachel Dolezal, and I kind of like feel slightly bad that I just used her name as like an insult. I think Rachel Dolezal has had a really tough go of it. Fun fact: Rachel Dolezal is actually is not a bad artist. I've looked at some of her art. Maybe I'll buy a Rachel Dolezal art piece at some point because she's really not that bad of an artist, and I think that she's really like, it's like, what a sucky ass. But I actually really think that like she just likes Black culture. I think that she's actually gotten a bad rap. I would actually love to interview Rachel Dolezal one day. I mean, well, she might be confused, but like, I don't think she's confused. I think that that's just what she likes. I think it's just what she likes. And I actually feel bad for her. I do. But the woman that was like, she just reminded me of Rachel Dolezal with like the braids and like just trying too hard. But anyway, I would love to interview Rachel Dolezal. I really would.
in some regards, like made to be a challenge, like to say like, well, we're going to read, a book by a Black author for 30 days, or we're going to read. And I'm like, no. Like, the books can be read all year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
instead of it being a production,
Yeah.
let's make it a normal, beautiful, natural. This is just what we do, and this is how we celebrate. And I love that a lot of teachers are getting this. And I think I need to just get it for some of the teachers here. My children go to a predominantly white school. And so just being able to get it for, just for to be able to even talk about race. They've had amazing teachers and great experiences, but I think that key point of the freedom and just the verbiage to open the door to talk about it. Like, no, this is not something we shy away from. This is something we celebrate. This is something that we are enjoying and talking about. And it's not a bad thing, because sometimes it gets that taboo, like, oh, this is bad, we can't talk about this. This is important.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes.
And so what we're going to transition into next is that we're going to talk a little bit about the book.
Finally.
And I want to share with the viewers in the audience who are on now and who may watch the webinar in a replay is throughout the conversation about the book, I will ask reflection questions that come directly from the book. And so if you choose to, it would be a great opportunity to think about some questions that you want to pose for the end of the conversation. And so I just wanted to make that point that I'm going to prompt throughout this conversation for the audience. And so in getting into a conversation about the book, so historically speaking, people who benefit the most from racial equity work identify as Black, Indigenous, and Latino, just given the historical context of our country. And so just so that we are creating a bit of a foundation for the book, its purpose, and how it can help, Anissa, I want to come to you. Well, first, before I do that, I want to read something. So in the book, there's an acknowledgement that skin color is only one component of diversity, and that there are many other factors and complexities that perpetrate systemic racism and inequities. This book and the Talking to Kids About Race workshop are designed to spark thinking about this topic and provide an entry point for engaging young children in conversations about race. And so I wanted to share that passage first as we get into the conversation, so that people understand that the book is a tool, and it's not necessarily the one thing that is going to single-handedly dismantle systemic racism and oppression. So in saying that, Anissa, if you can explain a little bit, one, why we should be talking to kids about race. We've touched on it a bit already, but one thing that I got from reading the book is to make sure that I'm separating the difference in talking to a child about race over engaging them in a broader discussion about the implications of racism. So if you can just kind of start there.
A child can't understand that.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Sure.
Hang on.
Thanks for that question. Yes, and
There is no possible way that a child could understand a conversation about the implications of systemic racism. These people on this webinar don't even understand their own definitions of equity or systemic racism so far. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. So if these people don't understand their own definitions, there is no possible way that a child is ever going to understand what the holy F they're talking about. That is a pipe dream at absolute best.
I think that's super important what you said about the book being a starting point and a tool. And also just to name the audience, I do want to clarify because it does have such, whimsical, beautiful illustrations and talking to kids about race. It's not a children's book. So there are many books that are meant to tell stories directly to the child. It really is a book that's for adults and to guide them on how to engage in these conversations. And also there's lots of...
So you made an illustrated style children's book targeted at adults. Doesn't that say a lot about the like I've said a million times, and we saw this on the webinar we watched the other day on Wednesday, Hump Day Happy Hour, on my other channel. But we saw this. It's like a lot of times you find these people that are really into these social justice movements. They are incredibly emotionally stunted. They talk like they're children or teenagers at best. They use the same language that kids and teenagers use. They have the same mannerisms that kids and teenagers use. They almost seem like it really does feel oftentimes like watching like an 11 through 15-year-old having a conversation. And the fact that they put together an illustrated children's book style book for adults to teach adults how to have conversations with kids about race, doesn't that say a lot about what age they really are in their head? This is not a mature population in any way.
Books listed in the back as resources that are more for the children audience. But in terms of why this is important, this is some of the research I'm getting into in my program and even started to get into a little bit in the book, but it's so developmentally natural for children to notice difference. And we have research that shows us that as early as 3 months of age, children are drawn to same race faces, and they can do this by measuring how long they look at different images. And by 6 months, it kind of shifts to be more connected to really focusing on other race faces. But what you see is just even with babies,
it's their caregiver.
Something that they're very naturally doing. This isn't something that's taught. It's just noticing difference. And then as they get older, you start to see even bias by age 3, where it's starting to impact their judgments of others or selection in friendships or even self-identity. And so that alone really shows us as adults that these are important conversations to have, because it's not the noticing that's a problem. That's actually very healthy and important. Children are trying to make sense of their world, but it's the meaning that's associated.
They're trying to make sense of the people who are giving them food.
Embedded in our societal structures. If you say nothing, the messages that are absorbed are about hierarchy, are about valuing certain groups over others, and really kind of perpetuating dominant culture and marginalizing people of color. And so it's super important to have these conversations. And when you think about with children, like you said, Kendra, we're not trying to go in and talk about these very deep concepts and this is what systemic racism is and you're 2 years old, things like that. But you are talking about noticing differences in yourself, noticing difference in others, and also really focusing on building empathy. That's such a core piece as people for children to be able to love themselves, all the different features that make them unique, including their skin color, but also recognizing that common humanity in other children, regardless of what they look like. And that's where some of these conversations are focused on at the beginning.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I shared with you in the off conversation how one of my, I read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. And in the beginning of the book, he talks about, there's a passage where he talks about race being the child of racism, not the father. And that the issue, he says that hue and hair are old, but it's the idea that hue and hair signify something deeper, and that those attributes can correctly align society. And so it just made me think about that and talking to kids about it at a young age, to whereas if they're learning about it young, maybe the less likely that they will grow up and develop or give it deeper meaning as
No, they're going to grow up as more racist.
so,
Congratulations, you guys are
things he
literally
said,
creating more
that is
racists.
actually going to take us into
You're literally
our
creating
next
more
topic
racists.
is about how children notice differences at a very young age.
You teach
And
them
so
to
one
notice
thing that I wanna
differences, like
do
they're going to
to,
notice differences,
create
and they're going to make judgments based
context
on those
around what we're going to
differences.
talk about next is I'm going to share just a quick 25-second video, and then after it plays, Anissa, we'll come back and then we'll get into a conversation about connections to theory and research about how children do recognize differences. So give me one moment while
I hope they're able to name
I
at least
put it
one
up.
paper, because she hasn't named a single paper yet. She just said, there's research.
There's more baby, Nana. There's a black baby here. There's a black baby here, Nana. There's a black baby here. There's a black baby here.
What you got? You want me to put that back up for you?
The hell was that? What was that?
And so I wanted to share that video. Oh, one moment. My YouTube was still going. So
Because here,
so I
say
wanted
yes to the
play,
dress.
That video for viewers who are watching.
What was that?
To help create a basis for what we're going to talk about next is the idea that children at a young age, they notice differences and they are fascinated by them. And so when I saw that video, it actually went viral on social media. And there was a lot of commentary among adults of what was happening. And so in the comments, some adults, they wrote things like, children don't recognize race at that age. Someone taught her that. What has the little girl been told for her to be yelling, it's a black baby here? They must have taught her to be a racist as an infant. So these were
that's
comments
stupid
coming
too.
from adults about the observation of the little girl.
That is
being
just as stupid as
fascinated
what
by
you guys are
seeing,
saying.
Another toddler who looked different from her. So without really knowing exactly what was going on in that video, can you share a little bit about maybe what could have been going on?
Yeah. So I think that that's a really good example of sometimes situations that can catch adults off guard and make them very uncomfortable. I felt discomfort even from the kind of bystander in the video of just like, oh gosh, what do we do? This is kind of a taboo topic, maybe.
It wasn't taboo
but
at all. She saw a black doll and she was excited.
It also kind of hurts my heart to hear people saying, oh, she was probably taught to be racist as an infant. Because
You're
even when
literally,
we, like you said, we don't know the context, but
you are literally saying that about white children. You are literally saying that white children are taught to be racist, but if it's like a black child, no, that hurts our heart to say. And I'm sorry, I don't think any child is taught to be racist. I think that kids identify with people who look like their caregivers. They're identifying with people who look like the people who are putting a roof over their heads, making sure they're safe, giving them food. That's what they're recognizing. And to say like it's okay to say it about what, but to say it's okay to say it about white kids and it's not okay to say it about black kids, I'm sorry, what the fuck? That seems kind of racist. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, man. I'm not at all surprised that people said that. The reason that people said that is because people like you are telling them that white kids start becoming racist at 6 months old. When that's not true. That little black girl wasn't racist. That little black girl probably saw a black doll and got excited about it. It's like, ooh, that one looks like me. That one looks like my family, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this, like, but you can't say there's nothing wrong with that and then put that on white children as though they did something different than what that black girl was doing. My gosh.
Even as you're looking at her expression, it's not fear. It's not even like judgment or disgust. It seems like interest, curiosity, even excitement. And so I wonder if this particular child may be coming from a very homogeneous context where possibly this is maybe more of, she sees diversity on TV or in books. And so this is a new experience. You know, as you said, we don't know, but it's not, that's not wrong to notice. It's really about the meaning. So in this situation, you know, what I think would have been helpful is whoever the caregiver is that she's talking to be able to point that out and affirm it. Yes, you're noticing that this little girl has brown skin. It's a different color than your skin, isn't it? And just really being able to say, yes, you're seeing that, and then take it further to give this little girl her whole self, to be able to say, let's go ask her name, you know, and then even you do see she touches her hair to be able to remind this child, oh, remember, we need to ask before are you noticing those barrettes in her hair? They're really pretty, but you have to ask, like that's her body and you have to ask. So just even getting into consent or things like that, but trying to then create a conversation. What's this little girl's name? Finding things that, oh, it looks like she wants to play with a shopping cart too. And just getting back into that child space and helping this little girl to form a connection with another child, but not having to hush that she's noticing the skin color. Because even just to say, don't say that, gets in her mind, oh, there's something wrong with her black skin. And that's not the message that you want. You want to be able to address it. You want to be able to normalize it. And you want to be able to then make these other connections to similarity and difference, even with the child in a situation like that.
Yeah. And before we go on, I want to pose a question to the audience to start thinking about. Actually, two questions, because I missed my own cue to ask the first one. But just based on the clip that we saw, and even what Anissa is talking about, how it can create discomfort for adults to be in that position and not necessarily know what to say, or be, you know, just don't know what to say or do. Think about a time when a child commented on race. How did you feel? And what was your nonverbal response? So from the video, the young man who was working with the children, to me, his nonverbal response was to quickly give her a toy, give the black girl a toy. He just clearly didn't know like what to do or say. And so just start thinking about that. And if you want to comment or reply, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And so Anissa, and also Gloria and Piper, as we move through the conversation with the book, feel free to jump in with your comments and thoughts as well.
Yeah, I had something for you right here. And it was directly, excuse me, from the book that when I was gonna maybe try to find it, but I remember it's when if a child says, like the video, you know, oh, the sky is blue, but you say, nope, the sky is purple. That it can cause distress within the child. It can cause anxiety and distress in them, and it confuses them. Like in our world, we would say, oh, well, we don't see color. You know, I think the thing to address here is that we do see color. We celebrate color. And this book helps open up that conversation of key points on how to do that and how to interact with children, and sometimes really how to interact with ourselves in our adult world. Like, we're seeing color, we're celebrating it. This is not a taboo topic. This is a celebration. And that was the next step for me. Past acceptance towards appreciation. The very next step is celebration. Like, I celebrate you. Like, you guys do that on holidays, or you guys do, this is something that you do. That's why you wrap your hair. Like, I'm obsessed with headdresses, and each different culture has a different reason. It's not always the same thing. And I think that when we know more about people, when we know their stories, when we know the background, instead of saying, oh, no, we don't know anything, we all are the same. So when we tell children we're all the same, as far as complexion and culture goes, first of all, it's not true. And children know that. Intuitively, they know that, because studies have shown it causes them distress and anxiety. And now they're holding it inside of them, and there's no way to express it. And so now they're just frustrated. So we're giving them the freedom to say, like the book is saying, ask them open-ended questions. Ask them, well, what are you noticing? That's unique and that's different and that's beautiful. And really adding on to the end, whatever word that is very similar to beauty, that it is beautiful. And that's, you know, a unique thing. But definitely saying, hey, there are some beautiful differences. There's some unique differences here that are very important to point out, instead of shying away and saying, that's not what it is. Because just like if we were saying, you know, 2 + 2 is 10, that would cause them distress. And it's frustrating. So it's really important to acknowledge those unique differences.
And, you know, as I was looking at before the project was still twinkle in all our eyes, I looked at the original book study, and there was an exercise in there, dirt activity, to try and understand which, characteristics about people, change and what stays the same. And that activity was to actually rub dirt on your arm, on different children's arms, and then wash it off. So with the dirt on, everyone was the same color, but then the color is different when you wash it off. And I saw that, being Latina and brown skin, it's sort of like, wow, that really is not a good thing to do. And there was also another exercise about getting different colored of apples. And the skin color is different from the inside when you cut them open. So what Anissa has done is, she's written that says that even though people are the same on the inside, sometimes they're still treated differently based on the color of their skin.
You're teaching people to do that.
What they believe in. And she goes on to say that it's not right when people are treated differently or badly based on these things.
You're correct. It is not right when people are treated different or badly based on the color of their skin. That is not right. Except that everyone in this webinar so far has advocated for treating people differently based on the color of their skin when their skin happens to be white. Now, I am far from one of those people who will say that white people are victims of the world, because white people are not victims of the world. I don't buy into this bullshit at all. I don't buy into this narrative that conservatives tried to play, that white people are just put upon and abused by all the poor, progressives and all this bullshit. I don't buy into it at all. But when you say that people shouldn't be treated differently based on the color of their skin, that should actually apply to everyone, not just non-white people. White people shouldn't be treated differently based on the color of their skin either. So follow your own rules. Naruto, did you hear an NYU organic chemistry professor was fired for making his class too hard? I have not heard that, Naruto, but I did just see the link that you sent me, and I will make sure I take a look at that later, and thank you for passing along that information. Organic chemistry is really hard, though. It is. I'm not sure firing him would have been the best first step, but to be honest, there were probably other reasons he got fired. If they're saying he got fired for making the class too hard, there were probably other reasons he got fired, like he was a pain in the ass.
All people deserve to be loved.
And I've gotten the
treated
hiccups,
with
so that bodes well for
kindness.
me.
When you see someone being treated different or badly, it's important to say that's not right. And you show them kindness by being a good friend. You know, to me, that was such a major change, because when we talk about implicit bias, some of the things that may be normal to someone. So if you're in a predominantly homogeneous environment and everyone looks the same, and a child sees that, when you see someone different, like in the video that we saw, you wonder what they are like inside, maybe, you know, because children get really interesting ideas. So this helps them with that. But using, you know, an exercise that is a lot more respectful I thought was one of the great things about this new edition that Anissa has written.
Yeah. And so kind of staying here a little bit, but shifting to what will be our last topic from the book before we see if there are any questions from the audience. One of which I want to plant is to think about what your earliest memories of talking about race and ethnicity were. I know for me, I actually called my sister and asked her if she recalls. She's 3 years older than I. And I actually remember for myself, my earliest memory of really talking about race was an attribute. It was about my hair, because my closest childhood friend was white, and she wet her hair every day in the shower. And so I went through this phase where I was wetting my hair in the shower, and my grandmother is like, what in the heck? Like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, oh, like, well, you know, Elizabeth does it, so, you know, I do it. And I remember my grandmother saying, well, you're not white. And I'm like, well, I didn't think I was white. Like, she wets her hair, so I'm wetting mine, you know? And that was really one of my earliest memories about having a race conversation as a child with another adult. So to the audience, think about your earliest memories of talking about race and ethnicity. And if you have any comments, feel free to put them in the Q&A. And so one of the last things that I want us to talk about, and this is open for Anissa, Piper, or Gloria. So in the book, it talks about the danger of just ignoring a child's natural interests and differences and things like that. And given that sometimes adults can be misguided around these matters, like in the comments over the video where people automatically assume that the child was taught racism, or believe that a child that young wouldn't notice the difference in color. Who is the book for? How do, if you could create the ultimate way for someone to get the most value out of the book, would it be someone who already is open to conversations and a bit more comfortable talking about race? Or is there a pathway for someone who may not quite be there yet? So that's the question that I want to pose to the panel, is who's the book for?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. And people hopefully by now have gotten a sense of how the book is organized, that you have some.
No, you haven't talked about it at all, actually.
Scenarios and tools. There's even like scripts and activities. So
there's scripts. Why don't you talk to us about the scripts? I want to hear about the scripts.
And I would say that the main audience
I want to hear about the scripts.
Will pick this up and get the most out of it right away are those who are recognizing that this is important and are maybe looking for an entry point that's more focused on the how. So it could be a white parent who is saying, you know, I really want to raise my children with this anti-biased approach and anti-racist just way that they're living, but like, how do I do that? Or for the group or the family who is in context, whether it's neighborhood or school, where there isn't a lot of racial diversity, like what does that look like? And I think that when you're asking those questions, this gives you a really good starting point and a lot of resources. I shared an example when we had talked before. I had worked as a school social worker for a number of years, and in a preschool classroom, there was a little boy who was playing with dolls. And first of all, I love that all the kids play with the dolls. Everybody can take care of babies, right? But he had walked away and he came back, and the doll that he was playing with, someone else had taken, and he was sad. And so I had just pointed out, I was like, oh, there's another baby there on the shelf. And he went over really excited, and he reached in the shelf and picked out the doll. And this doll was a brown skin doll. And before he was playing with a white doll. And he looked at it and he said, ew, not this one. And he threw it to the ground. And he was 4 years old. And I think that's one of the things that we have to think about when we talk about, oh, we're just going to be colorblind, or we're just going to talk about we're all friends, we're all the same, because I don't think people were sitting him down and telling him that brown skin was ugly or bad or undesirable, but he was still absorbing those messages. And so for any adult, whether you're a parent, you're an early educator, you care about kids in your life, a grandparent, if a scenario like that bothers you and you want to be part of reversing it and creating situations where there's this greater understanding and inclusive mindsets from the beginning, I think this book's for you. And if you're also thinking about instilling positive identity in...
I don't actually think this woman is a bad person. I will say that. I don't think she's a very smart person, but I don't think she's a bad person. I think she has positive intentions. I think that she's one of these people, and I will not call her a useful innocent because she's written a fucking book about this, so she's not innocent. She's probably not useful either. But you know, like, I don't think she's a bad person. I think that she's one of those people who has not sat down to think about what she is pushing and the consequences of it.
All children, because the research also shows that a positive racial identity, regardless of your background, is connected to well-being. It's connected to good academic outcomes, health outcomes, just your own confidence and self-concept. And so this is important for all children. But I still would say that the book can be relevant even if you're thinking of someone who you think maybe could use it, but they're not quite ready for this conversation. I encourage you to still gift it. As Piper was saying, thinking about even her children's
buy
teachers,
my book and give it away
she might
as a
not know
gift.
exactly their perspective on this, and maybe they would, you know,
buy my book
possibly
and give it
look
away as
at
a
it and be
gift
like,
too.
oh my gosh, talking to kids about race, like eye roll. But just to look at it, even if it's just kind of skimming through, could plant a seed. And I think that is worth attempting, because this is a really important conversation we need to be having more.
Yeah.
I really like the dedication. It says this book is dedicated to our children who continuously teach us how to be better. So, because if you think about it, they start off all wide-eyed, and it's just by how we talk about things or don't talk about things is how their attitudes are formed. And so this is excellent for either dipping into it or really, really studying. And I think it's for anyone that works with children or is interested in helping children think about where they fit in and where other people fit in.
Yeah. That's a good way to end, Gloria, because one of the last points in the book, guidelines for talking to young children about race. Again, this is one of my favorite. I'm trying to make sure I'm holding it right in the camera. It's weird when you're trying to reverse it. And so in the book behind
What
this
a mostly
illustration,
mundane session we had today.
It's a mom
Mostly
acknowledging
mundane.
what her child is recognizing about another child on the playground. And so she says, like, you're right, she has dark brown skin. That is something different about the two of you. I also noticed that she likes to go down the slide just like you. That's something you have in common. Why don't you just ask if she wants to play with you? And so for, adults who
Yes.
are
Perfect.
gonna get on this journey, the book is very well laid out between why, research that kind of backs it up, and then exercises and instructions that you can do so you don't have to have all the answers. And so that's what I love most about it. And so if there aren't any more comments from the panel, I want to take the last few minutes before we close to give viewers an opportunity to comment and ask questions. So
Yeah, it looks like we have a question from Deborah Johnson, which I think is a brilliant question. Deborah wants to know, what are parents most afraid of in grappling with this topic with their children, and how do you help them get over this concern?
I think in my experience, a lot of that fear or discomfort comes from people still needing to do more of their own work to understand. And that's why even in our resource section for the book, we have lots of materials for children, but we also have suggestions for adults, because you doing your own work first is going to better equip you to guide children. So sometimes it's out of like that discomfort because it's just like, I don't know, or I don't even understand this enough myself. But then I also feel like even when people know it's really important and they maybe even have done some of their own work and they're inspired to engage, they're so afraid of getting it wrong. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to create a bias where there wasn't one. And so it feels daunting and overwhelming to the point where they just choose silence. And so that's one of the things that we tried to approach in this book, is give people some very clear tools. Here's how you can describe melanin in a way that a young child would understand. So when they ask the question of, why is her skin different color than his skin? You can be like, oh, I have that. I know that. And so I do think that that's one of the big pieces, at least in most of my experiences. Certainly you have some people that are not in a growth mindset even at all to think that diversity, equity, inclusion are important, and maybe proactively trying to cultivate this dominance with their children. And that's a whole nother group and topic for how we address it. But for a lot of people,
this is correct. And this is actually the way that the anti-woke space should be operating. I'm working very hard to try to force it to operate in this way. This sounds as if this is a group to push their books and seminars. They support each other. They've worked together before. This is how, this is actually a really good observation, B. Martin, because here's the thing. This is how you bring about change in the world. When you help and support each other. And you lift each other up and you promote each other's work. And you look for opportunities to work together. I was actually thinking about this. I was thinking about this earlier today. I have and actually for like a good bit of the week too. I have never been involved in a community that stabs each other in the back as much as the supposed anti-woke space. Because the vast majority of the people that are playing in this space are really only in it to make money. And they're only in it to maintain their own status. I look at someone like, well, I won't say his name, an influencer who gained a certain degree of status by leaving the left and going to the conservatives. And along his journey, he had the help of a lot of people. He had people lift him up. He had people share his story. He had people support him. He had people bring him on tour. He had people shill for his book. And he gained a certain amount of status from that. But ironically, never passed that on to other people. Never passed it on to help other people, which is what we should be doing. And, you know, I think he's ultimately going to suffer for it. I could be wrong. I think he ultimately will. But I think that when you have, no, his name is not Brandon. When you have people who, I could actually say the same of Brandon Strzok. I could absolutely say the same of Brandon Strzok, 100%. But that's not who I was talking about with that particular story. I'll say his name because Walkaway has reached the point where it's attacking libertarians more than it's attacking Democrats. So you can see how that's gotten off track. My point is, though, that how the left works many times is they help each other. They support each other. They lift each other up. They promote each other's books. They promote each other's seminars. They promote each other's resources. The anti-woke space doesn't work like that. I would love for it to work like that. I think it should work like that. I don't consider people in the anti-woke space to be my competitor. But right now it doesn't, and we are all suffering for it, and they are winning because of it. All right, guys, we got about 5 more minutes. Let's wrap this bad boy up.
People that do want to do this, I think it's a lack of understanding or
Yeah, okay, so I have to highlight this. I'm sorry. LOL, I'm thinking of some conservatives who made status for themselves using my work and my ideas and never give me credit, and they never will give me credit. It'll never happen. I actually kind of get off on it every time I see a conservative blue check influencer use my work somewhere, things that I found or things that I came up with, and never mention where it came from because they know they're stealing my work because they aren't creative or original enough to do it on their own. They know it. And I know what shills they all are, Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, who, by the way, Matt Walsh's video, I will not allow myself to be canceled. Matt Walsh has sent a cancel mob at me on 2 separate occasions. Stunning and brave, Matt Walsh. Stunning and fucking brave, you absolute shill.
a fear of getting it wrong. And we hope that this book can address some of that and help people feel like it's more accessible to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And I just want to speak to something that it's at the end of the book. I know we're at the last couple minutes, but just give yourself grace. Like we're all in this, like, you know, when we all grew up.
I like that.
Learning different things, no matter what background we're from, right? And so as you're in this journey, no matter what your background is, give yourself grace, because as you grow, you're going to make mistakes. Like we all will make mistakes as we grow. So making sure that you give yourself grace, and then also take advantage of the resources. There's a ton of resources here. And then sometimes it's just being quiet and listening. Get around people that look different than you and listen. Just be still and listen. Oh, I see there might be another question popping up.
Yeah, I see this question from Christine that's talking about favorite books or resources to engage middle-aged kids about race, like 10, 13, those kinds of things. And one of the things that I love for that approach, there's so many books, there's so much good literature, but one of the things that I think is really important for that age is to create awareness and familiarity with
Thank you, Reagan. Have a good rest of your day.
You know, I think that middle school and that middle childhood age is really kind of like into the action and what did people do. And you have so many examples you can pull from history, but also real time today. And this also provides an opportunity where you can find ways for everyone to see themselves. Yes, we have many, many examples of people of color who fought back, who stood up, who said that this is not going to be something that we're going to tolerate, but you also have people who identify as white or Euro-American background. And I think that's really important, especially in these middle years when sometimes people who identify as white can start to feel like guilt or shame even about their whiteness. And so as they're being, everybody's racialized in different ways, but to still see, yes, although your circumstances and advantages may be different than other people based on what you look like, this wasn't your idea. We have a history for as long as this was an issue of people from all backgrounds that fought for justice and pushed back against what wasn't fair. And that's something that not only you can do, but we all collectively have a responsibility to do. So I really think focusing on that is a great way to engage with that age group.
And if I'm not mistaken, I know Kendra also, or maybe you guys as a group, put together a wonderful list of books as well, to help with that as well. And I think that's just a wonderful way to get kids engaged in the topic. Yes, perfect. Kendra dropped the link in the chat. So be sure to check that out. You guys reaffirmed a lot of things as I'm on this journey. I've got 2 young kids. I've got an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old. Race and diversity in general was not a topic in my childhood. And so now I'm bringing them up in a more diverse world. And especially over the last few years where, exactly as Piper mentioned, the anger started building and I needed to find a creative outlet to integrate them. And I found the best way to do it is to do what I can where I'm at. And this is where I'm at. And so we do what we can. And always afraid of getting it wrong, but just taking the next best step. That's all I can say. I want to thank.
Can I just add too really quick, Samantha? I just want to give a shout out to Sarah Salguera, who was she created the original workbook, and some of her content did carry over. So I just want to acknowledge her. And also there were content contributors who gave feedback on the book, who read it over, who gave suggested activities and additions, and all of their names are listed in there. But I just want to make sure that it's mentioned that this was a collaborative effort and we had an amazing team that helped put this together.
It's a wonderful book and you should be all very proud of it. And I hope everyone watching gets a copy for themselves and as a gift, because books make great gifts, especially this one. So thank you, Kendra. Thank you, Anissa. Thank you, Piper and Gloria, for this wonderful panel this evening. I hope everyone had a wonderful night.
I can definitely understand why this only had 12
some
views.
things to walk away with and think about, and go out there and talk to your kids. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you so much. I'm going to give you a clap because you can't hear all the claps. And we hope to have you in store, ladies, soon. And have a wonderful night, everybody.
Well,
thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
So I guess
Bye,
that's
everybody.
all we have.
Bye.
Hang on. I guess that's all we have for today. Listen, that was by far from the most offensive thing that we have ever watched at Happy Hour. It was like they were waffling back and forth between things I actually agreed with and things I really didn't agree with at all. And it's just like, it wasn't the worst thing we've ever watched, not the best thing we've ever watched, not the worst thing we've ever watched. I think it's, it is what it is, I suppose. But it really does. I just really wish that people would think through the logical consequences of their actions. I guess that is my big ask for this. And I understand why people don't do it. I do. I actually do understand why people don't do it. I understand that it's not a convenient thing to do. Usually, I understand that it forces people. I had to think through the logical and conclusions of my own actions when I was thinking through, holy shit, these social justice warriors are destroying the knitting community with this bullshit. And what does that mean for the party that I politically align myself with? And so, like, I'm not suggesting that this is something that is easy. I've had to go through it. It kind of sucks. But I really wish that people like that would think through it, and they would think through, like, could it be problematic for us to teach people to look at skin color first? Yes, it is problematic. It is. It's going to create more racism, not less racism. All right, guys, that is all we have for Happy Hour today. I'm going to go eat some smoked meat with the Libertarians in New Hampshire. I hope you all have some wonderful weekend plans, but if you don't, please feel free to drop by my locals community tomorrow. We are doing a Bitchcraft at 3 p.m. This is available to people who are supporting my work on Patreon or on locals. If you want to learn how to support my work, go to activelyunwoke.com/support. Sign up for Patreon and locals. I will be sending out the link at 3 p.m. tomorrow. This is an open community Zoom where we bitch and we craft, and I've got some knitting I need to work on. We're going full on black and white punk rock with this new shawl. I'm really excited about it. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. for that. We will be doing Socialism Saturday tomorrow later in the day. I don't know what we're watching yet, but we'll watch something socialist. And then on Sunday at 8 p.m., hosted by the one and only Jennifer, we are doing movie night this week, folks. We are doing The Crow in the supporter Discord, a great Halloween movie and probably one of the best goth movies ever made. And I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't seen it in years. If you haven't seen it, now is the perfect time. Come and join the supporter Discord to watch The Crow on Sunday. That's all we've got for right now, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.